Hey, Tony the Wrench here. It's time to take a seat. Have yourself something to drink. I choose water. Sit back for story time. Today I'll be telling you the story of my very first McIntosh score. So, it must have been probably about 10 years ago. My friend Alan and I, we're hi-fi hunters, and we're out gallivanting around looking for hi-fi, hitting the thrift stores, hitting the shops. You know, we're up in Paradise, California, before it burned, and there was a little store up there that specialized in mid-century modern furniture and antiques, and the owner just happened to be a hi-fi guy. The store's name was called Skyway Blue, and the gentleman's name was Rene. And now, if any of you know what happened to Rene or his wife, I'd love to be in contact with him, because I haven't talked to him since the fire, and we were pretty good friends. I'd go in there, pick for tubes, talk to him, buy things that were interesting. We always had stuff to talk about. We always wished there was more top-of-the-line, higher-tier gear to be rooting through, but, you know, that stuff's pretty desirable, and it doesn't come around much, so you got to appreciate it when it shows up. And one day, Alan and I go up there, and somebody sold him a bunch of nice stuff. All right, there's a Gerard 301 for $300, which we should have bought. It turns out that the seller wanted $3,000 for it. Rene had it for $300, and it's probably a good thing we didn't buy it. My partner Alan, he picked up a 301 recently, so he's not without a 301. I've got a perfectly decent turntable myself in Empire, so I don't need a 301. So someone else got that, and that's fine. 301 is about the best turntable anybody ever made. It's a Gerard 301. Stands on par with a Fairchild or a Thorns TD124 or any of those really top tier vintage turntables. So if you can find one for $300, you stole it. We didn't get it. But there was a bunch of other stuff there. There was a McIntosh C4 preamp. There were some Wharfdale speakers. There was a McIntosh MC30 power amp that was in absolutely horrible condition. Holes drilled in the chassis, switches added, lights added. Somebody painted over the chrome with silver paint with a brush, not spray paint, with a brush. Just slathered it all over everything. It was in really, really terrible condition. And I expressed some interest. The price was a bit too high for it. It was $600. I probably should have bought it for $600. But we walked. I didn't have the cash at that point. A couple weeks later on Craigslist, there's another lot of really nice stuff. And I get a hold of the guy, go up to his house, start looking at it. And he mentions that he took a load of stuff to Skyway Blue, and it was on consignment there. And that McIntosh MC30 and C4 preamp were his. So I said, well, I would sure like to acquire that set. Let's do a little horse trading. Traded him a bunch of stuff, some guitar speakers and things that he was interested in. And I think like $400 cash on top of that for the C8 and the C8S. Or no, the MC30 and the C4 rather. By the time he went to go retrieve the MC30 and C4 from the consignment shop, because they were actually his, the C4 had sold. Not a problem. I was not that interested in the C4. I didn't actually get a break on the deal, though, because, you know, I should have got a break. I made a deal for this and that was gone. Oh, well. I did acquire the McIntosh MC30 power amp. I took it home and slowly brought it up on my Variac, put some tubes in it, and it did work somewhat. As soon as it got hot, it would red plate a tube. So I changed the output stage capacitors. And sure enough, it worked for another couple months. I had it running through my James Lansing signature speaker from 1950. And it sounded pretty amazing, or so I thought. And it was just kind of a bragging rights thing. I only had the one, so I used it on a mono system to just listen to the radio with a mono tuner, all tube. It was just sort of a novelty thing. This was about the nicest stuff you could buy in the early 50s. And I had it. I've arrived. And eventually the capacitors started to cascade fail, as they tend to do in those amplifiers. Bumblebee capacitors, they are not good anymore. None of them are good anymore. The guitar people love them for tone, But in a guitar application, you're not putting 400 volts up across the capacitor and expecting it to block from your control grid. There's no DC potential across it in a guitar amp, and so, or in a guitar, tone control circuit within the body of the guitar. So they work great there, despite being leaky. People love them. If you have one in your hi-fi amp, you're tempting fate. You're going to burn up some expensive stuff as a result if you don't get it the heck out of there. I also realized that the carbon comp resistors in there are not great. The phenolic boards have absorbed water. The spray paint is covering everything. And there's really just not a whole lot to save with this amp. So I came into some money. Had some money. Life has its ups and downs. I decided I wanted to invest the money that I had and buy another MC30 before I commit to rebuilding mine. I want to have a matched pair, order all the parts at once. It seems like a logical choice. Save on shipping, save on labor. So I devised a plan. Okay, I'm $600 in at this point. I bought another one. I paid $1,000, so I'm $1,600 into a set of amplifiers that don't work. Not real smart for most people would consider that not real smart. But these amplifiers say McIntosh on them. So I bought a second one off of Audio Karma. I found one on Audio Karma, missing the tubes, in a little bit better condition, but not much. The chassis was rusted, and I was actually looking for one with a really rusty chassis because I figured I could save a few bucks buying one with a really rusty chassis, because my plan is already established. My plan is to extract the transformers from these amplifiers, paint them, and put them on 2 brand new amplifiers. So at the time, there was a man in New Mexico or Arizona making chassis for MC30s, screen printed with the McIntosh logo, everything 100% perfect to how it was before, with a little bit thicker chrome. So I bought 2 from him, and when I got them, I flipped them over and check them out, look at the workmanship. I've worked in manufacturing, so I look them over real good. It appears to me that he either bought the tooling from McIntosh that they built the MC30 on, the brake, or he went to the effort to cut and set the fingers of his finger brake in the exact same dimensions that McIntosh did. So finger brake fingers come in a variety of widths, and in order to bend a certain width bend, you're going to have a space in between 2 of them that has a mark for not having a finger on the inside. The mark does not transfer to the outside. So I noticed this extreme attention to detail that only a crazy person would put into making it right. And I really, it went to my head. I was like, okay, this guy really did a bang up job on these. These are perfect reproductions, indistinguishable from the original. So I was pretty stoked. That $200 a piece, that's dirt cheap. I put the chassis to the side, and I decided it was going to be it's kind of a no holds barred project. I bought new turret boards from Hoffman Amplification. I bought a bunch of turrets from them also, which you could buy 100 at a time, way cheaper. They're like 17 cents for a piece for 100 of them. Bought 200 of those, I think, and I took the measurements of the old boards and I built brand new FR4 fiberglass turret boards to the exact same dimensions as the old boards. I populated them with brand new Mallory and F&T capacitors. Used almost exclusively Dale CMF60 resistors, which are about as quiet as anything you're going to find. That's what the military stocks for whatever they do. Really top quality parts. I used new old stock cinch sockets, which is what McIntosh used. And I assembled the whole thing back together and tested it and fixed my mistakes. And as it turns out, these McIntosh power amplifiers perform every bit as good as a brand new one would. But nobody has a brand new one but me. I tested them on my test bench. They make about 42 watts before clipping. At 30 watts, which is their rated output, they perform from about 5 cycles to 100,000 cycles with no distortion, under 0.5% distortion. When you derate them by half, that improves. They do better than what they say screen printed on the side of the chassis, which when they came out, what was screen printed on the side of the chassis was pretty unbelievable in terms of performance for a high fidelity amplifier. They were the best then, and they're still a really damn good amplifier now. 42 watts out of a 30 watt amplifier, under 0.5% distortion, run them all day long. And the peace of mind that every single thing in the chassis is brand new. There's only one piece that I reused, the transformers. And one piece in addition to that, I ran out of 3 amp fuses when I went to fire them up, so I used one used 3 amp fuse, but who cares? Anyway, I was enjoying them. I enjoyed them for several months, and we called a meeting together, the audio club, and several of us got together at a friend of ours' house that has better speakers than I do, and we hooked him up to his speakers, and it was pretty amazing. We had actually a shootout between those amplifiers, a couple of his amplifiers, and an amplifier that he just had bought off the internet that turned out to be just junk. But everybody got together, had a good time, and the guy whose house we were at liked those amplifiers so much with his speakers that he and I went and found a set of MC40s a couple months later. He had me overhaul those, and he now runs a set of McIntosh MC40s in his front room, and he couldn't be happier. To conclude this story, a week or so after I delivered those MC40s to my friend, he sends me a text message that he got at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I know you love your music, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning and we have to work. Will you please turn it down? His neighbor could feel the bass, thick, heavy, good, quality bass in their house next door at 3 o'clock in the morning because my friend just could not stop listening to these beautiful amplifiers. And of course, he has got good speakers. He's got big Klipsch speakers, and so he got the ability to piss off his neighbors. I think that's their whole thing. Klipsch is pissing off the neighbors since 1959 or something like that, right? Anyway, that's how I got into McIntosh. I'm probably a McIntosh guy for life. They are the best. They do better than they say they do, and finding somebody to do what they say they do is nearly impossible in this modern world. Finding something that exceeds what it says it does in this modern world is something you've really got to cherish when you find it, and it's rare. Hey, have a nice day.